Hello everyone, I am so excited because something very important just came in the mail. Okay, this is something we've been waiting for, and let's just say, whew, this came just in time. I'm starting the filming of this vlog on Monday, October 24th, 2022. Okay, this date is important because Ben and I are leaving on Thursday, so in just 3 days. We're leaving, first of all, to go to Minnesota because my daughter has a musical performance on Friday morning in her chapel at her college that we want to be there to see. We were already going to be going to the Twin Cities on Friday to stay in a hotel because we have a morning flight on Saturday, October 29th, to San Diego. And the reason we're going to San Diego is because we are going on a cruise. We are going on a Halloween on the High Seas cruise on the Disney Wonder. We're very excited about this. This was a pretty last minute thing that we decided to do. We booked it within the window of where you have to pay the whole thing all at once. It's just Ben and I going, and it's been a long time since I've gone on a cruise with just 2 people. I've actually only done that twice before. The first time was my very first cruise, which was on the Disney Magic in 2001 with my son Andrew, and at the time he was 4. This was a long time ago. And the only other time I've gone on a cruise with only one other person was on my honeymoon with my then husband, which was in 2002, which was Royal Caribbean's Explorer of the Seas, which was a pretty new ship at the time too. Both of those were. So that's the only time I've gone on a cruise with only 2 people. And I forgot how much cheaper it is when there's only 2 people. Disney Cruise Line is, again, still more expensive than some of the other mainstream cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Carnival for sure. But I've talked about this in other videos, and I'll be talking about it again, of why I think you do get your money's worth on Disney and how you can definitely get better prices on Disney if you can be flexible with your dates. We paid $852 each for our fare for the cruise. And then with taxes and port fees, it came to $1,900 something. It was just over $1,900 for the total cruise. I am buying a photo package because I want to be able to get pictures of us on the cruise, especially because on a Halloween on the High Seas cruise, there's going to be some really great character opportunities to meet characters in their Halloween costumes. The only other onboard expense I should have for this cruise is our gratuities. So we're going to have the prepaid gratuities in the photos. Other than that, there's no drink packages on Disney, and since soda is all included in your cruise on Disney Cruise Line anyway, we don't really need anything like that. I don't drink alcohol. Ben isn't old enough to do the specialty dining on Disney Cruise Line, and I just am not really a fan of specialty dining because of the specialty dining on Disney Wonder is only Palo, which is only for 18 and up. And we don't plan on getting off the ship in Mexico. I mean, we might get off and walk around a little, maybe, but we aren't planning on doing any shore excursions. So our fare for the cruise is basically all that the cruise is going to be costing us, except for the photos and the gratuities. And then our flights were free. Our flights to San Diego, I paid for with miles. Now, something people may not realize about getting plane tickets with miles or points is you do have to pay the taxes. So our flights, our plane tickets to San Diego from Minneapolis to San Diego round trip actually cost $22. $11 for me, $11 for Ben, and that's just the tax. So we're getting our flights to San Diego for free. So that's awesome. Okay, so we had one little complication, and that brings me back to what came in the mail today, is right after we got back from Europe. If you haven't seen that, our whole playlist from Europe should be up on my channel by now. We spent 18 days, almost 3 weeks in Europe in August. And right after we came back from that, we went down to send in the kids' passports so that they could get new passports. Now for Megan, this was her first time because she's 18 now. She didn't even need me with her, but because this was her first time getting a passport herself as an adult or as an over 16 technically, she had to still appear in person. After this, she'll never have to do that again. Once you've done that once as an adult, you don't ever have to appear in person again. you can renew by mail, and the State Department is working on a new process by which it's going to be even easier for all of us because they're working on a process where we can renew them online. I'm not sure how that's going to work, like if you still have to send in your old one or what the deal is with that, because I'll tell you right now, when you have to send in your old one because they have to invalidate it. They have to see that, you have it. I mean, you can get a new passport if you don't have your old one, because sometimes the passport is lost or it's damaged or, it's destroyed beyond recognition or whatever. They punch a hole through it is what they do. I was just in my safe the other day, and I have a huge stack of passports, whole bunch of them with holes punched through them because we've had so many passports. That way they know, like if somebody tried to use that, oh, there's a big hole through it. You can't use this passport. Sorry, this is invalid. They are going to send their old passports back to us. Those will also come in the mail. Now, those will come in like a plain envelope. This came priority mail, okay? Megan's came on Saturday, so the last mail day. Today's Monday. And we were very excited. We're like, oh, here's Megan's passport. Ben's we were nervous about. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so open it up. Here it is. They did something weird this time. They did this to Megan's too, and I don't like it. They put a QR code on the back. All this does, it's a sticker. All this does is, it says right on it, it just takes you to travel.state.gov/new. So it's just a quick way to, I'm going to take it off of here. I did on Megan's too. It's a quick way for people to scan with their phone so they can see like any kind of updates about travel. But I can do that myself, thanks. I don't need the QR code making my passport all sticky. So anyway, just know you don't need this on here. That's just like some little promo thing they're doing. And then what I do, because look, it's left all this sticky residue now, I use the sticker. You can also use tape, and it'll actually pull that sticky off of there. Okay, so anyway, I'll finish that later. Okay, now something interesting. I'm going to cover up the important stuff. And he's got to sign it. When you get your new passport, you have to sign it. Okay? Something interesting is, when I got my new passport, hold on, let me get it. Earlier this year, I got a new, more high-tech secure version. Now here's Megan's, which just came too. And you can see hers is just like Ben's. It's still the red, white, and blue, the traditional one, the way they looked before. Their last passports looked just like this. Obviously, there's a different picture. Okay. But mine, which I got earlier this year, let's see when it was issued. February. Mine is super freaky. Look at this page. It's like plastic. And it's like almost black and white. And there's an extra picture up here. And then my picture down here, this is almost like transparent. It's really weird. And so this is a new, I read about these. This is a new, more high-tech, harder to counterfeit version. So I'm not sure why I got one like this and the kids still got the old kind. It might have to do with where they were processed. I'm actually not sure, but I just thought that was interesting and something to note. So if your passport looks different than somebody else's in your family, when you like if you get them around the same time, don't panic. They're still fine. They're still a totally legitimate passport. This is just a newer, more, anti-counterfeit measure type that they're using that they apparently have not rolled out to all of them yet. So, but I just happened to get one. After you send in your passport, you're applying for the first one or you're renewing it or whatever, you can go on the State Department's website under the travel section and passports, and you can sign up to get email updates on the status of your passport processing. And we did that. Megan did it for herself, and then she forwarded it to me, and I did it for Ben's. We only got two emails from the State Department. And we waited a while. We waited, I don't know, probably almost a month after we sent them in, and it said they were in processing. They had received it, and they were in processing. And it said that the date that they received it was September 2nd. We had gone down to the clerk of court's office, the county clerk's office at our courthouse, which is where you go where we live to get them processed. A lot of people do it at the post office. That's the most common place that people go. in late August, right before we had to leave to take Megan to college. So we had a very little window in there between when we got back from Europe and when Megan had to leave for college. We needed to get them done then because the kids' passports, their old ones, expired in March, which means that September of this year is 6 months before they expire. And I've talked about this before in this video, which has a ton of really helpful information in it. It's really important that you have at least 6 months left on your passport before it expires when you travel, because many countries require you to have that. You have to have at least 6 months. They don't all require it, but it's just a better idea, just as a standard rule, to make sure you always have at least 6 months left on it, because then you won't run into any problems. So we had to get those in September. We didn't have any international travel really planned at that time, other than cruises in 2023 that are booked. But we knew, like, if we're sending them in at the end of August, we're going to have them back before 2023. The first email that we got saying that they were processing said that they had received them on September 2nd. We should receive the new passports in 7 to 10 weeks. Okay? So I counted from September 2nd, and 7 to 10 weeks, 7 weeks from that date was this Friday. So the day before our flight to San Diego. And at that time, we hadn't yet planned to go up on Thursday to go to Megan's thing at school. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is cutting it close. But if it had taken 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, we wouldn't have gotten them at all. Megan's wasn't a problem. Megan's not going on the cruise with us. So hers coming was really a non-issue. But for Ben, we really would prefer to have his passport. But we could still go on the cruise if this had not come today. If this hadn't come this week before we left, we'd still be okay. I have an official copy of Ben's birth certificate sitting over there. Never done that. We've always had passports when we've gone on cruises. But I know you can do that, but I called Disney Cruise Line and asked them just to make sure, because I've never done it before. And I said, I explained, we just sent their passports back for renewal because we were in Europe and blah, blah, blah. What happens if it doesn't come back yet? And they said, it's no problem, because it is a closed loop cruise, meaning it departs and returns to the same U.S. port city, San Diego. You can travel with a birth certificate. Now, I never recommend doing that. And the reason I don't recommend doing that is because if for any reason you don't make that whole loop on that cruise ship, and there's lots of circumstances where this has happened to people and it's a big mess, and you get stuck somewhere or have to disembark the ship in some other country and you don't have a passport, it's really difficult to get back, because now you don't have your passport with you and you can't use a birth certificate for entry to the United States from other countries. Okay, you have to have a passport to do that. So it's really a good idea to always travel with a passport. In this particular case, I wasn't too worried about it. And I actually did our online check-in using his birth certificate. So I'm going to have to call Disney Cruise Line and make sure that's okay. That I uploaded a photo of his birth certificate for the online check-in on the Disney Cruise Line Navigator app. But we're going to show up and have this. So I'd really rather not carry both if I don't have to. This is a lot more compact and easy to fit in my purse. I don't really want to be folding his birth certificate up and stuff, and so I'm going to call and ask them about that. I happened to have 2 copies of Ben's birth certificate, official copies, here in my fire safe at home. I also am sure I have at least one other copy in my safe deposit box at the bank. One thing though, if you plan on traveling with a birth certificate on a cruise, it's very important that it is an official copy of your birth certificate. It can't be a copy. It can't be like a photocopy. It has to be an official copy with this raised seal on it. See that? So it has to actually have you can see it on the back too. Can you see that? Yeah, there you go. It has to have that raised seal showing that it came directly from, this is our county's Register of Deeds. So don't try to go on a cruise with a birth certificate. Don't show up at the cruise port with one that doesn't have that seal. They're not going to let you go. I just wanted to share this information with you to kind of help you with like travel documents for cruising. Okay, the reason we were a little nervous about Ben's, and if you go back and watch that other video I linked up there, I talk more about that there. I'm in a unique situation in that when your child is under the age of 16, you have to have both parents appear with them in person when they apply for a passport. And for a child under 16, you're not really renewing it. I mean, you are, but you're not. You're actually kind of applying for a new passport each time is how they think of it. Kids' passports, when they're under 18, are only good for 5 years. So, for example, Megan's new passport issued on October 18th, 2022, and it's now good until October 17th, 2032. So my passport and Megan's passport are both good now for 10 years because we're adults. But kids' passports, Ben's was issued on the same day as Megan's, October 18th, 2022, but his is only good until October 17th, 2027. It's only good for 5 years. The reason that they do that is because kids change too much. Kids' faces grow and develop. I mean, if you saw my kids' first passports, they're babies. They don't look like that anymore. They wouldn't look like that 5 years later. So they have to do kids' passports more frequently. So that's a really important thing to remember too. You have to get your kids' passports renewed or redone every 5 years. And my kids have had passports since they were babies or very little toddlers. And so they've had, 3-4 passports by the time they're adults. Okay, so with kids under 16, the thing with having to have both parents appear in person with them when they go to apply for their passport, I can't do that. I don't know where my kid's father is. I haven't seen him in almost 10 years. So we don't have any contact with him at all. And when I had to get their passports last time, so 5 years ago, we were in limited contact, but he wouldn't tell me his address. I didn't have a phone number. I didn't know really where he was. We only had like minimal contact through email, and he would not cooperate. And I had to go through this whole lengthy, big process to prove to the State Department that I had exhausted every effort to locate him and have him served and sent him these papers and that he didn't send them back. We had stuff just come back to us in the mail and all sorts of things. It was a big mess. It was a big pain to go through that whole process. Now, the good thing, I had two things working in my favor. One, I had done all that before. I did all that last time. Nothing has changed. I've had no contact with him since then. We still don't know where he is really. And so I think child support knows where he is, but they can't tell me that. I could say I wrote a letter. And I included it with Ben's passport application, a typed letter, and signed it. If you're in this situation where you don't have the other parent to go with you, you have to include an special circumstances? I think it's a special circumstances form. Wherever you go to apply for the passport in person, they'll have it. You can also find it on the State Department's website. When you go on the State Department's website for passports, and it'll ask, your situation, and it's child under 16, one of the things it'll say is, if you're in this situation, you're also going to need this form. So you can print it and stuff. Because I had done it all before, I was able to say, I did all this 5 years ago, and I went through all these steps to try to locate him without success, and our situation has not changed. We still have no contact, don't know where he is, blah, blah, blah. And then the other thing that I was able to show, which I included a copy of in there, in the passport application materials, was I had enough foresight when we got divorced, because he had a history of being uncooperative and not filling out forms and all that kind of thing when we were married. I got it in the language in our divorce agreement that he had to cooperate with keeping the kids' passports up to date at all times because we travel so much. And that became especially important for me because now I travel for my job. This is how I make my money. So I need them to be able to go with me. So it's not a problem anymore for Megan because now she's 18, and it wasn't a problem when she turned 16. And it won't be a problem for Ben ever again, because the next time we renew his passports, he'll be over 18 and he won't even need me. That's the situation when you're in a situation like that. So I had those things working in my favor, that I had done it before. I don't know if the State Department keeps a record of that, but they might. And then I had the legal document, the court document or divorce agreement showing that he was supposed to cooperate and doesn't. So that helped me a lot. I'm sure there's people who can still get them who don't have that, but I'm just telling you that that was kind of a bonus for me. Now, if you're in one other situation you might run into with kids is something like I had with my oldest son, Andrew. Andrew's dad is nearby us, and he sees his dad all the time and everything. His dad's actually in the military, and he's a good guy and doesn't give me any trouble or anything. But he couldn't come with us to apply for Andrew's passports in person because he had to work, okay? So that can happen a lot too. One parent just can't come. They can't get off work during the day or whatever. Or maybe you're divorced, you have a good relationship, but you live in 2 different states or something like that. If that's the case, you still have to include another form, but it's basically like a permission form that the other parent has to sign in the presence of a notary public. So like for Andrew's dad's case, he had a notary public on the base where he works. So he just took the form, I gave it to Andrew. Andrew took it to him. He took the form to work with him one day, signed it in front of the guy, and then gave it back to me, and I took it with us, and it was no problem. So if you're in a situation like that, where you're in a cooperative relationship with the other parent, or you are married and one of you just can't go, then you just need to do that. It's really simple and it's no problem. So some people completely freak out about that when they see both parents have to appear in person, and they're like, we don't have any way to do that. So they have all the bases covered. So I hope this was helpful to you. I was actually going to put this at the beginning of our travel vlog, our travel day vlog, but this video is long enough already. But I wanted to share this information with you because this definitely was a just-in-time situation that Ben's passport came. So we were really happy that it came less than 7 weeks, actually. So they said 7 weeks, and 7 weeks would have been Friday, and today's Monday. So now we have all our passports again. Yay! And we can all travel for lots more times. So that's just a little update on how it works with passports. I hope this was helpful to you. If you found this video helpful or interesting, be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them down in the comments below. I'd be happy to answer those for you. Have a great day, everyone, and safe travels.